Over YouTube, so we are back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we are back with what I think is a pretty interesting topic and discussion when it comes to Remake. Referencing a Reddit post again, of course, which is something we haven't actually done quite a while at this point, but it's something we usually do a lot. Quick shout out to HauntingAd5958 over on Reddit for kind of this video idea. We are going to talk about what they posted right here, but that's not going to be the entirety of the video. Now, kind of the TLDR on the Reddit post is about Sephiroth's attachment to Cloud and kind of why he can never die. Like, no matter how many times Cloud kills him or defeats him, he goes back to Lifestream. He can always just come back because he's attached Cloud to, like, his core. We learned this in Lifestream Black with On a Way to a Smile. Essentially, with Lifestream Black 1, we learned that when Sephiroth is defeated by Cloud at the end of the original FF7, that when he's within the Lifestream, he realizes that if he could hold on to a core of his spirit, he would remain separate from the Lifestream, so he wouldn't ever join up with it, and he chose Cloud as that core. And this is why he can always keep coming back, as long as he's a part of Cloud's memories. And we learn with like Lifestream Black 2 that even if he's just a fragment of a memory, he can still come back. Now, verbatim, it actually says, the man knew that if one could hold on to some core of their spirit, then one could remain a separate entity, independent from the planet's system. Cloud. The man decided to make Cloud that core, and he wanted Cloud to know of that. I'm still thinking of you, and I'll show you the proof of that as well. And then Lifestream Black 2 says, as long as Cloud remembers me, I can continue to exist, within the Lifestream and on the surface. Even if my spirit disseminates, even if just one fragment of a memory courses around the planet, in the end, I can count on Cloud's consciousness to bring me back, the man thought. Now, there is a third part to Lifestream Black. There's actually 3 parts to both Lifestream Black and Lifestream White, which is about Aerith, of course. But Lifestream Black 3 is essentially just like the setup for Avid Children, where he's kind of creating the remnants of him, Kadaj, Laz, and Izu, and then theorizing that the Genova cells can maybe give him a body again. Now, hopping back to the Reddit post really quickly, essentially what it's about, the TLDR on it, is with Sephiroth's attachment to Cloud, does that mean that Cloud's going to die when it comes to Remake? Because when you think about it, that's kind of the only way that he can really be defeated, until Cloud dies of old age, I guess, too. Now, before we even continue further on into this video, I'm not trying to convince you that Cloud Strife is going to die when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake. We're just talking about the possibility of it. Same thing as we talk about the possibility of Aerith potentially living, so on and so forth. It's just another discussion. Now, some of the arguments against this are that other people have memories of Sephiroth, so Cloud dying wouldn't matter, but as we just read with Lifestream Black, he specifically attached himself to Cloud, so Cloud dying would matter. It would get rid of Sephiroth. It doesn't matter that Tifa remembers him. It doesn't matter that everybody else does too. The other argument is money, which is somewhat a fair argument, but also it's boring, it's not original, you're not thinking outside the box, that's lazy. And what I mean by that is that people think that they wouldn't dare kill Cloud or fully kill off Sephiroth because it would make them money. They're the reason that FF7 is popular. Again, a fair argument, but if you truly believe that, then you're not giving enough credit to like Nojima and Nomura, Katase, all the other people that have a say in on the story for FF7. And what I mean by that exactly is that they're going to tell the story they want to tell. And I want them to do that. I want them to be able to write and make the game and the story that they want to make and not be worried about the money of it. But also, let's be real here. If by the end of the Remake project, somehow Sephiroth is fully defeated and Cloud has to die in the process of all that, they can always make some stupid-ass convoluted way for them to come back. They don't have to be dead forever. If they want to do that, I'm not saying that that's what I want or that's what they should do, but we've seen it with like Final Fantasy X, right? Like Tidus dies at the end of that game, comes back with Part 2, and then with like Final Fantasy X Will, he dies again and is brought back yet again. Like, they could do that too, like, right? Kind of similar to with the original game, like if you just played the original FF7 and none of the other stuff existed, you would assume that Sephiroth is dead and defeated, but he eventually did come back with Advent Children. They found a way. And this next part's obviously just anecdotal, it's just my thoughts, but when it comes to Final Fantasy X, that's probably the last ending of a Final Fantasy game that has really ever impacted me. Like, I took forever to beat that game as a teenager, and I was a teenager back then, a hardened male teenager, had no feelings, didn't give a shit, didn't cry watching movies or anything. But man, when I finished Final Fantasy X, I had to watch Tidus die, or what we thought was dead or whatever, join up with the fire plane, whatever you want to call it, like, that hit me. That got me choked up. And if I'm honest with you, part of me as a Final Fantasy fan wants that again. Like, I want them to go that route, to have the balls to kill off a protagonist, the guy you're controlling the whole game. Like, I kind of want that. It's not necessarily that I'm vying for Cloud's death, but like, if they want to go that route with the story, like, I'm okay with it, because that's probably going to hit me right in the goddamn feels. Now, moving on from there, putting aside the Cloud death stuff, this video is really about defeating Sephiroth for good when it comes to the remake story. Some of the other options are, for one, altering Cloud's memories, because his memory of Sephiroth, even a fragment of a memory, as we just read with, Lifestream Black 2, can make Sephiroth come back. So they'd have to somehow alter Cloud's memories. Think of like the Midil segment when it came to the original FF7, but I don't know how they do that intentionally, unless you can just hop into the goddamn live stream and do shit like the Midil segment. I don't know. But still, that is one way that they could defeat Sephiroth for good, so to speak, is if they were to alter Cloud's memories, erase any part of his memories that has to do with Sephiroth, then there'd be no link in the two and he could never come back. Maybe he could still be in the Lifestream kind of forever, wandering the Lifestream forever, or whatever the case. But this would still, at least as far as we know, prevent him from coming back at some point. I also think it'd be a really cool segment of the game if, like, we intentionally go into Cloud's mind and we're going through, like, almost like a boss fight, like gauntlet mode type of thing, where we're just fighting different versions of Sephiroth all throughout Cloud's history and memories to defeat those memories. Like, that may be a pretty cool little segment of the game. It's just something I thought of. But again, I don't know the ins and outs of how they would do this. That'd be up to the writers, because I still don't even fully understand the Lifestream. It's kind of ambiguous. I don't understand how Tifa and Cloud fell into the Lifestream as human people, but then we're in some, like, abstract mind of Cloud, how Tifa was even a part of that, how they even altered that shit and fixed it, and then how they got out of Lifestream. Like, how does that make sense? If they fell down on the goddamn planet, how the hell did they wash up on the shores of Medieval? Maybe that's explained somewhere, and you guys, of course, could tell me that, but that's just something that's always bothered me for, like, 20-something years now. Now, the only other way, at least right now, that I could think of in terms of defeating Sephiroth for good, at least in a physical sense, would be destroying Jenova entirely, because that's part of why he comes back, obviously, if you've watched Advent Children. Like, he had the remnants out there, but he couldn't come back in a physical sense until the Jenova cells. Whenever Kadaj takes the Jenova cells at the end of the movie, he turns literally into Sephiroth. So if the characters could find a way to fully get rid of Jenova, this would at least prevent him from coming back in a physical sense. He could still maybe be in the Livestream and still fuck with the party. This could also be a way to kind of do a different ending than the original FF7, but also you wouldn't have to kill Cloud and kill Sephiroth in the process, and they could still do more games and stuff after that, because they'd both still exist. And to be honest, this is maybe the more likely of all these that would happen, because people have been talking about this for a while, that even, like, the way Sephiroth acts and talks, especially with, like, the education scene, I believe it's with the Japanese version of the game, like the terms that are used, maybe the pronouns that are used, that he's, like, separate from Jenova, and it seems like he'd maybe want to kill Jenova, or get rid of Jenova as well when it comes to Remake's story, so she's no longer a part of him. Something along those lines. So, it's very good odds that this may be the route that they choose to go. However, there are a few issues with this. For starters, Jenova infecting the Lifestream at the end of the original FF7, that's where we get geostigma and shit from, with Advent Children, so they'd have to try to defeat her in a different way with Remake, where they're not trying to do Meteor and Holy and Livestream and all that other shit. Otherwise, it'd be the same result, right? And unless I'm mistaken, and maybe it's explained somewhere else, with the ending of Advent Children, we get, you know, the rain from, like, that Aerith, like, helps cause, that cures people of geostigma, but that's just curing them of that disease. That doesn't get rid of Jenova with inside the planet, and of course Sephiroth is still there as well. So again, they'd have to maybe defeat Jenova in a different way where she couldn't infect a Livestream within Remake. And this should be knowledge that maybe, like, Aerith and Sephiroth both have, since, you know, they seem to have the knowledge of the shit that's happened beforehand. They should have knowledge of Advent Children. The other issue here is, of course, people like Cloud that have Jenova cells still in their body, because that'd still be a way, if somehow maybe, I don't know how you do it, extract Jenova cells from Cloud, maybe just a drop of his blood could bring Sephiroth back for all we know. I don't entirely know how that works. Maybe there's lore out there for that shit. It's pretty ambiguous when it comes to Jenova, but as long as people exist on the planet of Gaia that still have Jenova cells in their body, it's probably still possible for Sephiroth to come back in some way. So that actually kind of unintentionally wraps back around to the potential death of Cloud, because as long as he's alive, Sephiroth can keep coming back. And as long as he's alive, there's still Jenova. Jenova still exists. So, you know, I'm not trying to, like, push this too hard, but it's... I don't know, man. If they're trying to, like, actually have a conclusion to the Final Fantasy VII story when it comes to the Remake project, there's a lot of things pointing in the direction of the potential of Cloud's death. I don't know that they would go that route. If they did it right, it could hit really hard. I think it'd be a fantastic piece of storytelling. Unless there's, like, a way for them to eradicate the Jenova cells out of, like, Cloud's body, and if Zack's still alive or in our world or our timeline or whatever, they can eradicate the Jenova cells from his body too. But even then, there's really no way of knowing if Jenova's fully dead, because more than likely, fucking Hojo's got her in a goddamn jar somewhere, right? There's probably a piece of Jenova somewhere within Hojo's lab or something. He's got that bitch hidden. So there's probably always going to be Jenova, even if they could try to eradicate her from, like, the planet entirely. Ultimately, my thoughts here as we're wrapping up the video is that they've been conceptualizing the Remake project for quite a long time, as far back as, like, when the compilation began, like 04, 05, something like that. And I gotta think that they have some sort of end goal and end game in mind when it comes to the Remake project. There's gotta be a satisfying conclusion, and the only real satisfying conclusion is the death of Cloud to save everybody, Sephiroth being fully defeated somehow, Jenova being fully defeated somehow, or kind of all of those, combination of those. Otherwise, if we get to the end of the Remake project, and, you know, Sephiroth's still alive in some fashion, Jenova's still around in some fashion, then we just kind of wasted our entire time. Don't get me wrong, the journey there's probably going to be great. Remake Part 1's great. The other games are going to be great too, I'm sure. We're going to have all kinds of different feels along the way, happiness, sadness, anger, all that other shit. But if we end where we began, Sephiroth's still around, Jenova's still around, then ultimately it's kind of a waste, isn't it? So I hope that they have a good conclusion in mind. My dudes, that's going to be the video. I want to pass off to you guys. What are your thoughts on this? Keep it in mind, who knows how many games there's going to be, right? But the conclusion, what do you I know that's far off at this point. When it comes to wrapping up the Final Fantasy VII Remake story, how do you think they're going to do it? Because as long as there's still a piece of Genova out there, then she's always a threat. As long as Sephiroth is still a part of Cloud's memories, he's still a threat. There's no real way, as far as we know, unless they come up with something new with the remake story to fully eradicate him from like the live stream and shit. Maybe that's something they could do too. It's kind of someone throwing here at the end. Maybe they find a way to just get him out of the live stream. I don't fucking know. My dudes, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys aren't able to do more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @DashingDavidYT. I'm my Discord. Links to social networks are in the description. In the outro. Later, guys.
I will never be a memory.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine or leave it like Cobain.